Hello, I'm reading from Autobiography of a Yogi. I'm starting in the middle of page 531. Meekly she approached and silently assented to our snapping a few pictures, a number of pictures with our still and movie cameras. Patiently and shyly she endured our photo techniques for posture adjustment and light arrangement. Finally, we had recorded for posterity many photographs of the only woman in the world who is known to have lived without food or drink for over 50 years. Teresa Newman, of course, has fasted since 1923. Most motherly was Giri Bala's expression as she stood before us, completely covered in the loose flowing cloth, nothing of her body visible but her face with its downcast eyes, her hands and her tiny feet. A face of rare peace and innocent poise, a wide, childlike, quivering lip, a feminine nose, narrow, sparkling eyes, and a wistful smile. Mr. Wright's impression of Giri Bala was shared by me, spiritually enfolded her like a gently shining veil. She pranamed before me in the customary gesture of greeting between a householder to a monk. Her simple charm and quiet smile gave us a welcome beyond that honeyed oratory. Forgotten was our difficult, dusty trip. There's a picture of Giri Bala, the non-eating saint. She employs a certain yogic technique to recharge her body with cosmic energy from the ether, sun, and air. I have never been sick, the saint said. The little saint seated herself cross-legged on the veranda. Though bearing the scars of age, she was not emaciated. Her olive-colored skin had remained clear and healthy in tone. Mother, I said in Bengali, for over 25 years I have thought eagerly of this very pilgrimage. I heard about your sacred life from Shiti Lal Nandi Babu. She nodded in acknowledgment. Yes, my good neighbor in Naabaganji. During those years I have crossed the oceans, but never forgot my plan someday to see you. The sublime drama that you are here playing so inconspicuously should be blazoned before a world that has long forgotten the inner food divine. The saint lifted her eyes for a minute, smiling with serene interest. Baba, (honored father) knows best, she answered meekly. I was happy that she had taken no offense. One never knows how yogis and yoginis will react to the thought of publicity. They shun it as a rule, wishing to pursue in silence the profound soul research. An inner sanction comes to them when the proper time arrives to display their lives openly for the benefit of seeking minds. Mother, I went on, forgive me then for burdening you with many questions. Kindly answer only those that please you. I shall understand your silence also. She spread her hands in a gracious gesture. I am glad to reply, insofar as an insignificant person like myself can give satisfactory answers. Oh no, not insignificant, I protested sincerely. You are a great soul. I am the humble servant of all, she added quaintly. I love to cook and feed people. A strange pastime, I thought, for a non-eating saint. Tell me, mother, from your own lips, do you live without food? That is true. She was silent for a few moments. Her next remark showed that she had been struggling with mental arithmetic. From the age of 12 years, 4 months, down to my present age of 68, a period of over 56 years, I have not eaten food or taken liquids. Are you never tempted to eat? If I felt a craving for food, I would have to eat. Simply, yet regally, she stated this axiomatic truth. one known too well to a world revolving around 3 meals a day. But you do eat something, my tone held a note of remonstrance. Of course, she smiled in swift understanding. Your nourishment is derived from the finer energies of air and sunlight, and from the cosmic power that recharges your body through the medulla oblongata. Baba knows. Again she acquiesced, her manner soothing and unemphatic. Mother, please tell me about your early life. It holds a deep interest for all of India, and even for our brothers and sisters beyond the seas. Giri Bala put aside her habitual reserve, relaxing into a conversational mood. So be it. Her voice was low and firm. I was born in these forest regions. My childhood was unremarkable, save that I possessed an insatiable appetite. I had been betrothed when I was about 9 years old. Child, my mother often warned me, try to control your greed. When the time comes for you to live among strangers in your husband's family, what will they think of you in your day if your days are spent in nothing but eating? The calamity she had foreseen came to pass. I was 12 when I joined my husband's people in Nawabganj. My mother-in-law shamed me morning, noon, and night about my gluttonous habits. Her scoldings were a blessing in disguise, however. They roused my dormant spiritual tendencies. One morning her ridicule was merciless. I shall soon prove to you, I said, stung to the quick, that I shall never touch food again as long as I live. My mother-in-law laughed in derision. So, she said, how can you live without eating when you cannot live without overeating? This remark was unanswerable, yet an iron resolution had entered my heart. In a secluded spot, I sought my heavenly Father. Lord, I prayed incessantly, please send me a guru, one who can teach me to live by thy light and not by food. An ecstasy fell over me. In a beatific spell, I set out for the Nawabganj Ghat on the Ganges. On the way, I encountered the priest of my husband's family. Venerable sir, I said trustingly, kindly tell me how to live without eating. He stared at me without reply. Finally he spoke in consoling manner. Child, he said, come to the temple this evening. I will conduct a special Vedic ceremony for you. This vague answer was not the one I was seeking. I continued towards the Ghat. The morning sun pierced the waters. I purified myself in the Ganges as though for a sacred initiation. As I left the river bank, my wet cloth around me, in the broad glare of day, my master materialized himself before me. Dear little one, he said in a voice of loving compassion, I am the Guru sent here by God to fulfill your urgent prayer. He was deeply touched by this very unusual nature. From today you shall live by the astral light. Your bodily atoms will be recharged by the infinite current. Giri Bala fell into silence. I took Mr. Wright's pencil and pad and translated into English a few items for his information. The saint resumed the tale, her gentle voice barely audible. The Ghat was deserted, but my guru cast round us an aura of guarding light, so that no stray bathers later disturb us. He initiated me into a Kriya technique that frees the body from dependence on gross food of mortals. The technique includes the use of a certain mantra and a breathing exercise more difficult than the average person could perform. No medicine or magic is involved, nothing beyond the Kriya. In the manner of the American newspaper reporter who had unknowingly taught me this procedure, I questioned Giri Bala on many matters that I thought would be of interest to the world. She gave me bit by bit the following information. I have never had any children, Many years ago I became a widow. I sleep very little, as sleep and waking are the same to me. I meditate at night, attending to my domestic duties in the daytime. I slightly feel the change of climate from season to season. I have never been sick or experienced any disease. I feel only slight pain when accidentally injured. I have no bodily excretions. I can control my heartbeat and breathing. In visions I often see my guru and other great souls. Mother, I ask, why don't you teach others the method of living without food? My ambitious hopes for the world's starving millions were quickly shattered. No, she shook her head. I am strictly commanded by my guru not to divulge the secret. It is not his wish to tamper with God's drama of creation. The farmers would not thank me if I taught many people to live without eating. The luscious fruits would lie uselessly on the ground. It appears that misery, starvation, and disease are whips of our karma that ultimately drive us to seek the true meaning of life. Mother, I said slowly, what is the use of your having been singled out to live without eating? To prove that man is spirit, her face lit with wisdom. To demonstrate that by divine advancement he can gradually learn to live by the eternal light and not by food. The saint sank into a deep meditative state. Her gaze was directed inward. The gentle depths of her eyes became expressionless. She gave a certain sigh, the prelude to the ecstatic, breathless trance. For a time she had fled to the questionless realm, the heaven of inner joy. The tropical darkness had fallen. The light of a small kerosene lamp flickered fitfully over the heads of many villagers squatting silently in the shadows. The darting glowworms and distant oil lanterns of the huts wove bright, eerie patterns into the velvet night. It was the painful hour of parting. A slow, tedious journey lay before our little party. Giri Bala, I said, as the saint opened her eyes, please give me a keepsake, a strip from one of your saris. She soon returned with a piece of Benares silk, extending it in her hand as she suddenly prostrated herself on the ground. Mother, I said reverently, rather let me touch your own blessed feet. Chapter 47. I returned to the West. I have given many yoga lessons in India and America, and I must confess that as a Hindu I am unusually happy to be conducting a class for English students. My London class members laughed appreciatively. No political turmoils ever disturbed our yoga peace. India was now a hallowed memory. It was September 1936. I am in England to fulfill a promise given 16 months earlier to lecture again in London. England, too, is receptive to the timeless yoga message. Reporters and newsreel cameramen swarmed over my quarters at Grosvenor House. The British National Council of the World Fellowship of Faiths organized a meeting on September 29 at Whitefield Congregational Church, where I addressed the audience on the weighty subject of how faith and fellowship may save civilization. The 8 o'clock lectures in Claxon Hall attracted such crowds that on 2 nights the overflow waited in Windsor House Auditorium for my second talk at 9:30. Yoga classes during the following weeks grew so large that Mr. Wright was obliged to arrange a transfer to another hall. English tenacity was an admirable expression in a spiritual relationship. The London yoga students loyally organized themselves after my departure into a self-realization fellowship center, holding their meditation meetings weekly throughout the bitter war years. Unforgettable weeks in England, days of sightseeing in London, then over the beautiful countryside. Mr. Wright and I used the trusty Ford to visit the birthplaces and tombs of the great poets and heroes of British history. Our little party sailed from Southampton for America in late October on the Bremen. The sight of the majestic Statue of Liberty in New York Harbor brought to our throats joyous emotional gulps. The Ford, a bit battered for struggles over ancient soils, was still puissant. It now took in its stride the transcontinental trip to California. In late 1936, lo, Mount Washington Center. The year-end holidays are celebrated annually at the Los Angeles Center with an 8-hour group meditation on December 24, parentheses, spiritual Christmas, followed the next day by a banquet, social Christmas. The festivities this year were augmented by the presence of dear friends and students from distant cities who had arrived to welcome home the three world travelers. The Christmas Day feast included delicacies brought 15,000 miles for this glad occasion: gushy mushrooms from Kashmir, canned rasagula and mango pulp, papar biscuits, and oil of the Indian Kiora flour for flavoring ice cream. The evening found us grouped around a huge sparkling Christmas tree, the nearby fireplace crackling with logs of aromatic cypress. Gift time. Presents from the earth's far corners: Palestine, Egypt, India, England, France, Italy. How laboriously had Mr. Wright counted the trunks at each foreign junction, that no pilfering hand received the treasures intended for loved ones in America. Plaques of the sacred olive tree from the Holy Land, delicate laces and embroideries from Belgium and Holland, Persian carpets, finely woven cashmere shawls, everlastingly fragrant sandalwood trays from Mysore, Shiva bullseye, stones from central provinces, Indian coins of dynasties long fled, bejeweled vases and cups, miniatures, tapestries, temple incense and perfumes, Swadeshi cotton prints, lacquer work, Mysore ivory carvings, Persian slippers with their inquisitive long toe, quaint old illumined manuscripts, velvets, brocades, Gandhi caps, potteries, tiles, brasswork, prayer rugs, booty of 3 continents. One by one I distributed the gaily wrapped packages from the immense pile under the tree. Sister Gunamata, I handed a long box to the saintly American lady of sweet visage and deep realization who during my absence had been in charge at the Mount Washington Center. From the paper tissue she lifted a sari of golden Benares silk. Thank you, sir. It brings before my eyes the pageant of India. Mr. Dickinson, the large parcel contained a gift that I had bought in a Calcutta bazaar. Mr. Dickinson will like this, I thought at the time. A beloved disciple, Mr. E. E. Dickinson, has been present at every Christmas festivity since the 1925 founding of the Mount Washington Center. At this 11th annual celebration, he stood before me, untying the ribbons of an oblong package. The silver cup. Struggling with emotion, he stared at the present, a tall drinking cup. He seated himself some distance away, apparently in a daze. I smiled at him affectionately before resuming my role as Santa Claus. The ejaculatory evening closed with a prayer to the giver of all gifts, then a group singing some Christmas carols. Mr. Dickinson and I were chatting together some time later. Sir, he said, please let me thank you now for the silver cup. I could not find any words on Christmas night. I bought the gift especially for you. For 43 years I have been waiting for that silver cup. It is a long story, one I had keep hidden within me. Mr. Dickinson looked at me shyly. The beginning was dramatic. I was drowning. My older brother had playfully pushed me into a 15-foot pool in a small town in Nebraska. I was only 5 years old then. As I was about to sink For the second time under the water, a dazzling multicolor light appeared, filling all space. In the midst was the figure of a man with tranquil eyes and a reassuring smile. My body was sinking for the third time when my brother's companions bent a tall, slender willow tree in such a low dip that I could grasp it with my desperate fingers. The boys lifted me to the bank and successfully gave me first aid treatment. 12 years later, a youth of 17, I visited Chicago with my mother. It was September 1893. The great World Parliament of Religions was in session. Mother and I were walking down a main street when I again saw the mighty flash of light. A few paces away, strolling leisurely along, was the same man I had seen years before in a vision. He approached a large auditorium and vanished within the door. "Mother," I cried, "that was the man who appeared at the time I was drowning." She and I hastened into the building. The man was seated on a lecture platform. We soon learned that he was Swami Vivekananda of India. After he had given a soul-stirring talk, I went forward to meet him. He smiled on me graciously as though we were old friends. I was so young that I did not know how to give expression of my feelings, but in my heart I was hoping he would offer to be my teacher. He read my thought. "No, my son, I am not your guru." Vivekananda gazed with his beautiful, piercing eyes deep into my own. "Your teacher will come later. He will give you a silver cup." After a little pause, he added, smiling, "He will pour out to you more blessings than you are now able to hold." I left Chicago in a few days, Mr. Dickinson went on, and never saw the great Vivekananda again, but every word he had uttered was indelibly written on my innermost consciousness. Years passed, no teacher appeared. One night in 1925 I prayed deeply to the Lord that the Lord would send me my guru. A few hours later I was awakened from sleep by soft strains of melody. A band of celestial beings carrying flutes and other instruments came before my view. After filling the air with glorious music, the angels slowly vanished. The next evening I attended for the first time one of your lectures here in Los Angeles, and knew then that my prayer had been granted. We smiled at each other in silence. "For 11 years now I have been your Kriya Yoga disciple," Mr. Dickinson continued. "Sometimes I wondered about the silver cup. I had almost persuaded myself that the words of Vivekananda were only metaphorical. But on Christmas night, as you handed me the little box by the tree, I saw for the third time in my life the same dazzling flash of light. In another minute I was gazing on my guru's gift that Vivekananda had foreseen for me 43 years earlier, a silver cup." Chapter 48. At Encinitas in California. "A surprise, sir. During your absence abroad we have had this Encinitas hermitage built. It is a welcome home gift. Mr. Lin, Sirigan, Anamata, Durga Ma, and a few other devotees smilingly led me through a gate and up a tree-shaded walk. I saw a building jutting out like a great white ocean liner towards the blue brine. First speechlessly, then with ohs and ahs, finally with man's insufficient vocabulary for joy and gratitude, I examined the ashram. 16 unusually large rooms, each one charmingly appointed. The stately central hall, with immense ceiling-high windows, looks out on an altar of grass, ocean, and sky, a symphony in emerald, opal, and sapphire. A mantel over the large fireplace of the hall holds pictures of Christ, Babaji, Lahari Messiah, and Sri Yukteswar, bestowing, I feel, their blessings on this tranquil western ashram. Directly below the hall, built into the very bluff, two meditation caves confront the infinites of sky and sea. The infinities of sky and sea. On the grounds are sunbathing nooks, flagstone paths leading to quiet arbors, rose gardens, a eucalyptus grove, and a fruit orchard. May the good and heroic souls of the saints come here. Parentheses, so reads a prayer for a dwelling from the Zend Avesta that hangs on one of the hermitage doors. Parentheses. And may they go hand in hand with us, giving the healing virtues of their blessed gifts that are as ample as the earth, as high-reaching as the heavens. The largest state in Encinitas, California, is a gift to self-realization from Mr. James J. Lynn, a faithful Kriya Yogi since his initiation in January 1932. An American businessman of endless responsibilities, parentheses, as head of vast oil interests and a president of the world's largest reciprocal fire insurance exchange, parentheses, Mr. Lynn nevertheless finds time daily for long and deep Kriya meditation, leading thus a balanced life. He attained in Samahade the grace of unshakable peace. During my stays in India and Europe, parentheses, June 1935 to October 1936, Mr. Lynn had lovingly plotted with my correspondents in California to prevent any word from reaching me about the construction of the ashram in Encinitas. Astonishment, delight. During my earlier years in America, I had combed the coast of California in quest of a small site for seaside ashram. Whenever I had found a suitable location, some obstacle had invariably arisen to thwart me. Gazing now over the sunny acres in Encinitas, humbly I saw the fulfillment of Sri Yukteswar's long ago prophecy, a retreat by the ocean. A few months earlier, Easter of 1937, I conducted on the lawn of the new ashram the first of many Easter sunrise services. Like the Magi of old, several hundred students gazed in devotional awe at the daily miracle, the awakening solar light in the eastern sky. To the west lay the Pacific Ocean, booming its solemn praise. In the distance, a tiny white sailing boat and the lonely flight of a seagull. Christ, thou art risen, not with the vernal sun alone, but in spirit's eternal dawn. Many happy months went by in the Encinitas setting of perfect beauty. I completed a long projected work, Cosmic Chants. I gave English words and Western musical notation to many Indian songs. Included were Shankara's chant, No Birth, No Death, the Sanskrit hymn to Brahma, Tagore's Who is in My Temple, and a number of my compositions, I Will Be Thine Always, In the Land Beyond My Dreams, I Give You My Soul Call, Come Listen to My Soul Song, and The Temple of Silence. In the preface to the songbook, I recounted my first outstanding experience with Western reaction to Eastern chants. The occasion had been a public lecture, the time April 18, 1926, the place Carnegie Hall in New York. On April 17th, I had confided to an American student, Mr. Alvin Hunnisaker, I am planning to ask the audience to sing an old Hindu chant, O God Beautiful. Mr. Hunnisaker had protested that Oriental songs are not easily understood by Americans. Music is a universal language, I had replied. Americans will not fail to feel the soul aspiration in this lofty chant. The following night, the devotional strains of "O God Beautiful" had come for over an hour from 3,000 throats. Blase no longer, dear New Yorkers. Your hearts had soared out in a simple paean of rejoicing. Divine healings had taken place that evening among the devotees, chanting with love the Lord's blessed name. This is a photograph of the Self-Realization Fellowship Hermitage, Encinitas, California. Okay, that's it for today. I'm ending at the top of page 548.